Have you ever hit with the Babolat Pure Aero 98 and thought, wow, this is an amazing racket, but it's kind of too stiff and it's too uncomfortable, and also, wow, $279 is a lot for just one racket. I really wish I could get something just like it, but more comfortable, a little softer feeling, and at the low price of $219. Well, you had the exact same thought as Dunlop when they released the Dunlop SX300 Tour. So in today's video, we're gonna analyze some of the key updates for the 2025 model, compare its performance to what I consider to be the best racket in the world right now, the Babolat Pure Aero 98, and we're gonna talk to a few different players with vastly different play styles to help you determine if this Dunlop SX300 Tour is right for your game. So on paper, these two rackets, the Aero 98 and the 300 Tour, look almost identical, with a few key specs really leading the difference. Number one, we've got a 20th cross on this Aero 98, whereas the Dunlop features your typical 16x19 string pattern. Number two, the Dunlop has a thicker beam throughout, but it really beefs up at 3 and 9 o'clock, going up to 26 millimeters in that location, so that's this way. And number three, the Dunlop actually clocks in a bit stiffer based on Tennis Warehouse's strung measurements at 69 RA versus 66. So if, like me, you're an at-home stringer, but you're looking to expand your customer base, I've got some great news, because Direct Tennis, the #1 source for at-home stringing services near you, is now beginning their global expansion. Up until now, Direct Tennis, which is an app which helps link at-home stringers with customers in their area, was only locked to the United States. But moving forward, it is going to be a global network. And the best thing about it is, if you're looking to join one of the fastest growing global network of stringers in the world, you can do so for the low price of $299 a month. And anytime you choose to download the iOS app or visit the Direct Tennis website, you are, in fact, also supporting TennCom, because Direct Tennis has been our longest running sponsor on the channel. We definitely wouldn't be at the level of production without their support. So if you would like to join Direct Tennis today, check out the links in the description below. Playability wise, this 300 Tour is kind of like a Pure Aero 98 crossed with the Dunlop FX500, which is kind of like Dunlop's Pure Drive. You get this really nice all-around spin-oriented playability that you see in this Aero 98, but with a little bit more power and that signature Dunlop slightly rubbery feel that is a lot plusher than you'd expect its RA to be, without being kind of spongy or overly flexy. Now, despite this racket being a 98 square inch frame, the massive thickness of the beam means that this 300 Tour actually plays a lot closer to your typical 100 square inch racket than a lot of the 98s. For example, I really would not be cross-shopping this racket with like the Head Extreme Pro or the VCore 98. Rather, I'd be comparing it to the 100 square inch cousins of those rackets, like the Extreme MP and the VCore 100. That said, the immense torsional stability with the Pure Aero 98, I think, makes it a really natural competitor to the 300 Tour. And in fact, those small differences in specs really only lead to minor differences in playability. What does make a huge difference is Dunlop's generous implementation of dampening tech. So for the 2025 model, Dunlop has increased the application of their dampening tech, called Vibro Shield, by 38%. There's virtually zero harshness with this racket. You kind of have to be like Trey from Winners Only, string this bad boy up at like 60 pounds with a stiff, raw poly to feel any sort of vibration. And that's surprising, because Dunlop has also increased the stiffness of this frame compared to the last version. The racket face is 7% stiffer, and the throat section is 3% stiffer. No doubt that part of that increased stiffness comes from the widening of the beam at 3 and 9 o'clock. So when we get the beam measurement, like on Tennis Warehouse, you see the beam thickness, they're looking at it here, here, and here. But Dunlop for this racket has widened the beam this way, just like they did on the CX line. Now, this stiffer layup means that the flex of this frame is incredibly predictable, much like the flex we get on this Aero 98. But With the Dunlop, the feel is tremendously more comfortable. You get better ball pocketing and just more plushness on contact. Now, the upside of this is that the racket is really easy to recommend for those with questionable elbows, whereas the Aero 98 is a non-starter if you have a history of arm issues. The downside is the feel is not that connected, and especially for those like me who prefer a more raw, connected feeling frame, you're probably not gonna love the feel you get here. The general feel is quite rubbery. That's the main word I'd use to describe this tech. I can't say it's my favorite feel in the world, but I can say I do prefer it to like auxetic and the other materials which soften the layup of the frame to increase comfort, rather than just dampen the vibrations. With the SX, you still get the benefits of a stiff racket because the frame is still stiff. You get power, you get great stability, and you get great predictability off the string bed. And you don't get any of this weird enhanced flexing that we see in like the Wilson Clash, even the new EZO 98 or the Auxetic 2.0 treatments. But overall, I have to say I think I do prefer the general feel of Bablat's Flax. It's more natural, more organic graphite kind of feel, or just like Technofiber's foam filling, which doesn't really dampen things that much, which is probably why I really like that. But ultimately, what really matters is how this SX300 Tour plays on court.
We're here in San Francisco, once again pushing the boundaries of Trey's hospitality, and we're trying the SX300 Tour. Mine versus Trey's. What do we think about it? I actually really like it, so we'll see how it goes.
So Simon, you've been trying out this SX300 Tour for about a month now. What are your top 3 favorite things about this racket?
I think now that you've got it in its current setup, it is extremely confidence inspiring when you're going for it. It flies through the air really smoothly, and when you make connection, when you're swinging fully, it has a really nice feel and honestly gives you a lot of power and control at the same time.
And what are your 3 least favorite things about it? Could be things that we found in stock form that we later fixed with customization and strings.
Stock form, honestly, I did not love this racket. I thought it felt a little bit boardy. It says it's a spin frame, but I just wasn't getting the spin out of it that I thought I should. I don't know if that's to do with the strings or maybe it was the cold in Canada as well. But yeah, I just thought that it felt a little bit weak and a little bit old-fashioned almost.
Is this a switchable frame for you? You're looking for a new racket, your wideouts are getting old.
Before I tried it today, I would have said absolutely not. Today, I am loving it. So honestly, it's very fun to play with, very fun to rip. I think I'm gonna need to play with it a few more times just to make sure it's not some random good day, but yeah, I am really liking it, and I love the paint job.
So you used the Pure Aero 98 before, switched away from it a little bit, but you have been using that racket a lot in the last almost 2 years. Are there any scenarios where you feel like the SX300 Tour is better than the Pure Aero?
I've never hit them back to back. I've been falling in love with the Pure Aero. I've been using it a lot again lately. Super confidence inspiring, but this definitely has more feel, and they both have a very similar property. When you're swinging it through the air, it feels very smooth and impacts with a heavy punch.
So Trey, elephant in the room, you got to deal with Dunlop, so you didn't probably try every single racket to see which is the best one for you, but what made you go with the SX300 Tour over the rest of the lineup?
I wanted something powerful, but I've been looking for more margin in my game.
Yeah.
And so the spin that this offers was different than something like the FX500 or 500 Tour that I also looked at because it's similar to what I used to played.
Where are you finding that spin makes a difference for you?
Big on approach shots, like I can dip these in more with this thing. The wide serve I have access to more with this racket than I did previously. So those are the biggest difference so far. Kick serve too. I can really kick it with this thing, so that's fun.
So going into the 2025 season, we're looking to make some big moves. How do you think this racket is going to help you develop as a player?
Making more balls. I've said my mentality this year is to be a pusher. not necessarily just like dinking balls back, but I want to be a aggressive pusher, making a lot of balls, staying in points longer. That's where I think this is going to take me to the next level.
And so I've been reading a lot of comments on your channel and other people's channels about like how this is just not the right racket for you because it doesn't complement your strengths.
Okay.
What are you saying to those players?
That might be true. Like, I don't know. This is the third racket I've used in my life. I want to be able to try different things and see what fits my game. I can always go back to the 500, the FX series, or I can try the CX series if I need to do that as well. But I want to see if this fits my game. I like the idea of being able to make more balls, but still maintain the power with this thicker beam. And I think I found a good sweet spot with my setup here.
And what is your setup?
Yeah, so it's taken me a while to get here, but I have 6 grams at the top of the hoop, 10 grams in the butt at Beckett's recommendation, and then I'm stringing at 60 pounds with Dunlop Explosive Tour right now. So that's the setup.
Yeah, so we had to actually string quite tight as well to find success. So we're at 55 pounds in our setup. This is K Pro, which is probably the string that Simon and I have liked the best so far in this racket. Still gets good grip on the ball, a little bit of a lower launch angle, though I did like the crisper feel with your setup. So definitely one I'd like to try a little bit more.
No!
And if you're looking for more of an in-depth discussion on the kind of customization that I worked on to get this SX300 Tour dialed in. So this is my friend Manish from Tennis Warehouse. He's actually taking over the show. He's gonna ask me some questions.
I wanted to talk to Beckett about how he has customized his frame. He's talked about like he's adding weight a few places. So I wanted to ask him why and what the effects were.
Or you just want sneak peeks into upcoming releases, my first impression thoughts before the final review is out. For example, I had a bunch of E-Zone content out onto our membership page before I was actually really ready with my thoughts to publish a full review for that E-Zone 98. You'll definitely want to check out our membership page. A lot more raw content on there, so if you want to know like some spicier takes that I have or early access to content before I've really digested all of my feelings and I want to work through what I think about certain rackets with you, especially in the context of what rackets I might switch to in the future, then the YouTube membership page is honestly where it's at. So my favorite things about this racket, I do appreciate the comfort. Usually I don't like the dampening, overly plush feel, but considering this is already a pretty raw, stiff feeling frame, I think there definitely is market space for the 300 Tour to come in there as like the comfort option if you wanted a pure Aero 98 but in a more comfortable package. This is absolutely where I would go. Spin, access to spin is quite solid. Much like this Aero 98 though, I feel like my best results came from swinging through the ball. It's not that easy to brush up. It feels like there's a huge twist weight here, a lot of weight at this 3 and 9, just like we got with the Aero 98, so the swing feels honestly very similar. The thing that I didn't really love about this racket is the launch angle is extremely high and it feels like you have to really string it quite tight to get the kind of control that I'm looking for. It wasn't that balls would fly on me here and there randomly. It was like every single ball was launching higher than my Aero Rafa. For my Aero Rafa, I'm rocking at like 51 pounds tension with Tourline Otoro. In this racket, even though the head size is smaller, the ball is launching higher, it's launching further, and the lack of connection you get because of this dampening tech makes it a little bit harder to feel like you're adding control to your shot. You're just a little bit more disconnected to what's going on the string bed, so it's kind of harder to read the fact that every ball is going to launch quite far. Once we got the tension tightened up, like with this K Pro setup, this was my favorite one, like we said. I think Caviar really helps tame launch angles. Caviar in the cross specifically keeps things low. It's great for like more flat hitters. I really see why Carew is getting great benefit from a setup just like this. And so I am liking at like 55 plus tension. Trying Trey, who strings at 60 with Dunlop Explosive Speed, his setup, I was like, this is great. Suddenly it's like way more connected because the tension is so high. You get such a way more boardy feel and the comfort is still there. like the dampening tech they put in this thing is maybe a bit overkill in my opinion. I still do prefer the Aero 98. I like that raw, more connected feel. I think the consistency that you get with the 20th cross compared to the 1619 is tremendously noticeable. I think that slightly more dense string pattern combined with the thinner beam really dials control in. I would really like to see what happens if Dunlop went to a 16x20 pattern on this one for the next version. I think they could really do with lowering the launch angle a little bit to dial in some control. Overall, I think Dunlop has done a very, very good job with this frame. I'd recommend it too. Like I said at the beginning of the video, anyone looking for a more comfortable pure Aero 98, anyone looking for like a deal on a racket, like it's $60 per racket less than this racket. Most people are buying like 2 rackets, right? One, you want to have a backup in case you break strings. That's $120 plus whatever taxes you pay in your area that you're saving. Like that's not insignificant, especially with the this is my favorite Dunlop racket right now. I'm just gonna go and say that.